Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.L. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Wednesday, October 30th, 2019. And today we're going to take a look at the upcoming sales over in London. Sotheby's, Christie's, and Bonhams all have some pretty good auctions coming up in just a few days, and I wanted to get into it with everybody and take a peek at what's going on. The catalogs are already all posted, of course, over on the reference section on Bidamount. You can get to it this way just by going to the home page and click reference bookcase, and it'll bring you here. And the most recent catalogs are always at the top. They're the ones that we're working on. There's a lot of them in there right now, though. If you haven't used the bookcase, we suggest you do. It's a great research tool. There's 485 books and catalogs on there currently. Most of them are auction catalogs from the big auction houses, but there's also some publications from the Metropolitan Museum of Art and other places that are quite good. And they're all enlargeable, they're all readable, and handy to have if you're traveling. All right. So let's take a look. We're going to start over here. This is the China trade paintings of the Kelton Collection at Christie's. They haven't done a sale like this in a while, and this is maybe one of the best collections of Chinese export paintings to come on the market in a long time. This guy has been building up this collection for 30 or 40 years, and it's on November 7th, and there's some great things in there. And we're going to get started. Well, there's China trade objects also. It's not just paintings. And the first lot I wanted to look at is this, an extremely rare soapstone carving of Peter the Great, the Tsar of Russia. It was based on a painting that was done, and there's a good write-up in here. You got to check it out. It was based on a painting by Jean-Marc Natier, and it's a very famous portrait that was done of the Tsar. He's standing, three-quarter length view of him standing aside with his hand on his helmet. And they believe this was the inspiration for the soapstone carving. And if you take a look at it, here he is. Here's his helmet, and the quality of the carving is just exceptional. And there weren't many of these done in Western forms. Most soapstone carvings of this period were done of Chinese figures and objects and so forth. They figure it was done around 1720. It's estimated at $25,000 to $37,000 US. I don't think that's unreasonable, but we'll see how it does. It's quite a rare thing. And then over here, is this portrait of George Washington. These were done in China based on a painting by Gilbert Stuart. His image, Gilbert Stuart made many of these. He made the paintings in the Boston area. They became very, very popular, and he made, some say, hundreds of these. And somebody took one to China, and they had them done in reverse. This is reverse painting on glass, the famous three-quarter length bust. And Gilbert Stuart, interestingly, got so upset that these were being done, he filed an injunction in Philadelphia to prevent their importation and sale. His efforts failed, and they turn up around the country periodically. Actually, when I ran a live auction house, we had one of these come in, and it did quite well at the time. I think it brought $8,000 to $10,000. But here is one, and today they're estimated at $25,000 to $37,000. It's in beautiful condition, and there is a write-up in here on it. And Carl Crossman's book, The China Trade, goes into some detail on these. But it's an interesting history of what went on between the U.S. and over there. Most of these were done around 1800 to 1830. And we'll see how that does. But it's a really interesting bit of history if you enjoyed China trade history. And then over to, let's see here. There we go. This series of China trade paintings on paper, these are very interesting. I happen to own a couple that are very, very similar to the Women in Robes. It's a pair that had belonged once to Crosby Forbes, the curator at the Peabody Museum. I bought it from his estate. And they're identical to these. These were done on paper, English paper by Watman. They're quite rare, and this is a complete folio. This is the whole set, and they were done around 1810, and it is estimated at $38,000 to $62,000 for the set. and we'll see how they do. But they're beautifully done. The quality of these paintings are quite exquisite, and if you zoom in on them, you'll see just how good they were. They were much higher quality than the later pith paintings that were generally done in the mid 1800s. Because of the paper they used, they were able to really do some incredibly fine detail work. And this is typically how they're done, just floating against a background. There was a fascination at the time in the West about Chinese culture, Chinese art, how did the Chinese people dress, and fashion was a very big part of the curiosity. And this is one of the lots that's coming up. You have to go through this whole catalog, though, if you really like this kind of stuff, because it's quite fantastic. And then you have this. This is an amazing painting that was done around 1820 of a tea warehouse in Canton, and there's two paintings in here, and it shows workers moving bags and bales of tea down, getting them out onto the docks to be shipped. There were numerous warehouses like this. Here they are processing the tea. You see these guys all standing in these tubs, marching on it, grinding down the dried tea so that it can be consumed. Bagged and then consumed after being exported. And these two paintings rather, are estimated at 60 to 80,000 pounds, or $75 to $99,000. All right, it's a warehouse. It's just titled "The Tea Warehouses at Canton." And we'll see how that set of paintings does. It's odd because nobody these days seems to know where the China trade market is going. I think it's woefully ignored because the history is fascinating. If you like history, this is a really fascinating series of pictures. And this is another one that caught my eye. I thought it was wonderful. It was the Chinese school. There's no the painters are hardly ever known who did these, other than a few well-known ones. And this one picture caught my eye. I thought this was great. It's an interior scene at one of the palaces, and in it they did a really fine job of detailing vases down here on the lower right, objects, scholars' objects. This beautiful display stand. With another, looks like a lacquer stand on top of it with a celadon and this U-form vase, and then a chime, and these beautiful examples of early 19th century furniture. This is not Ming furniture, I don't believe. It looks later to me. And some very fine celadon stools in the background, paintings, and the whole bit. It's just a great, interesting painting. And this lot, it's a folio, is estimated at $38,000 to $49,000. All right. But if you're interested in interior scenes in China, you find a lot of it in China trade paintings because they were so interested in China from a decorative standpoint, the culture, what did their houses look like. There was a total fascination. And as a result, the Chinese were happy to create paintings for export to bring in foreign currency. And this was one of the drivers of trade. All right, now on to page 72. This is another really interesting set. This is a set of pith paintings that were done at the famous Tinhua studio right here, okay? And it was in Canton. And here's a picture of the interior of Tinhua's painting studio. They were famous for turning out folders and albums of pith paintings. And here you have a scene. This album actually is a series of paintings of shops and stores in Canton. And one of them is done by Tinhua, and one of them includes Tinhua's own studio. And here you see the artist sitting, painting and drawing, and on the walls are completed works and so forth. And there's more of them along this big wall. And this was with how they looked. They also had, interestingly, tables with precious objects on them for the workers probably to enjoy. They may have even been for sale. You don't know, because this was in the middle part of the 1800s, and the Chinese loved to sell things to foreigners. All right, but here it is, and the entire set, the entire album is, let's see here, and this one is dated, this 4th year of the Zhenfeng reign, 1854. And it's blind stamped in silver foil on silk boards. It's complete. There's 38 leaves in this album. It's a complete album, which makes it very, very rare, very desirable. And Tinhua was pretty much the best of the Chinese export pith painting studios. $50,000 to $74,000 is the estimate on that. All right, and then we're going to hop over to the Christie's Fine Chinese Ceramics and Works of Art auction. There's some regular stuff in here too, but there's a couple of really fine pieces, and we're going to get to them in a minute. One of the pieces I thought was very interesting, was also a China trade piece, was this. A very, very, very exceptional large cistern, Chinese export, and it has the monogram on it of one of the heads of the director of the East India Company. Here it is, John Albert Seiderman. And he was a director of the China trade, the Dutch East India Company, and the governor of Bengal from 1734 to 1744. He died in 1764. All right, and here it is. And this is a big pot. It's 27 inches tall, and it is superbly well done. The quality of decoration on this is just astonishingly fine. I don't know what the condition is. I haven't seen the condition report on it, but the work on it is just exceptional. And you'll notice that the gilding on this thing is just perfect all over. This is in great condition and a very, very fine piece. It was probably done in the mid-18th century, and it is estimated, I think fairly reasonably, $38,000 to $62,000, keeping in mind that it's 27 inches tall, and has the name of somebody who was, one of the key players in the Dutch trade. Just a very, very rare thing. And then moving along over to, I have to look down at the keyboard here to do this. There we go. These are pretty rare. This is a pair of Champlavet Ludans. And you might remember a couple of months ago, or maybe 6 months ago, there was a big pair of bronze Ludans that came up on the market and did really well. They were out of a collector in England, as I recall. And here is another pair of them done in Champlavet, not cloisonné. Champlavet is a bit different than cloisonné in that the body, the metalwork is carved into, instead of using a wiring technique, it's carved into, and then the openings that have been carved are filled with enamels, versus a smooth body where they apply wires that create these little sections that they can pour enamels into. This is done by carving the piece very, very carefully, not to puncture the walls on the inside. It takes a lot of skill, and you don't see a lot of Champlavet from this period. These were done in the I want to make sure I got the early in the Qianlong period. They're estimated at $19,000 to $31,000. Very rare, and they're about 10 inches tall. But beautiful, striking shape, beautiful colors, beautiful quality, and those will be going off at the sale. And now on to page 86 in this thing are these two spectacular candlestick holders, 18th century, probably Qianlong period of the Fu lions. And you can come over to the catalog, of course, and blow them up and pull it in. And the quality of these is just stupendous. Just absolutely stupendous. And they appear to be in great condition with an undisturbed surface. And here you see the candle holders on their backs, and they're snarling at one another and all that good stuff. And they describe them as 18th century. They don't say whether they're Yongzheng or Qianlong or whatever. They're estimated, though, at $99,000 to $150,000. But these are pretty big. These things are over a foot tall each, which is a good size for bronze Fu lions. They're 13 inches tall, but quite exceptional. I'm really curious to see how they do. I really am. Now on to number 94. This is an interesting lot. This same bell. This is the gilt bronze bell. This bell came up for sale not that long ago, and it's being resold. This bell was sold just a few years ago in 2015 at Sotheby's. And it ended up selling for, I went out and found it. I dug it up to see how it did because I'm always curious. It sold for $1.2 million in September of 2015. And this is the same exact bell. And it's coming back to the market. All right, so we'll see if there's a lot of interest. Sometimes things that have been just recently sold and then reappear on the market a short time later have sort of a soft reception. Because people that were interested in that time have maybe gone on to other things. It's for some reason the churning objects on the market doesn't always work out so well for the owner. All right, things are more appreciated, it seems, financially when they've been held in a collection for a good long period of time, and the collection has built itself a very good reputation. This is an extremely rare bell. These bells were made in sets. They all produce different tones, and they were part of Confucius ceremonies and so forth. And there's a good bit of information in here. Rosemary Scott, who's an art consultant, did the write-up on this, and it's very interesting. And they go through how all the bells were made, and so on. Okay, and over here on the Christie site, they have included a lot of extra images that I found, and this is what the underside of one of these bells looks like. I think it's great that they showed this, because these bells are copied. There are copies of these bells floating around. They turn up in auction houses around the United States with some regularity. And this is what the underside of one of these should look like. So if you want, if you're interested in bronzes, I would suggest you go get this picture off the site and save it on your computer. It's a good reference material, and they included a lot of detail shots also. So it's well worth having if you're interested in learning about bronzes. Let me just put it that way. All right, now let's move along to, and it's currently, the estimate on this is still right up there. But it's not. They're not overestimating it. They're estimating it at 1 million to 1.5 million, and we already know it sold for 1.2 million not long ago. So we'll see how it does. But assume that the estimate is under 1 million. So whoever's selling it is willing to take a haircut if it gets to that. Unfortunately for him. All right, now moving along to this. This is maybe my favorite thing that's come up for sale in the last year, maybe the last 2 years. It is an incredibly rare Qianlong period, Marken period moonflask, done in the form is based on a Middle Eastern form that was introduced to the Chinese during the Ming Dynasty, but the patination in the surface is very reminiscent of archaistic patination in bronzes. And during the Qianlong period, the emperor was fascinated by this kind of stuff. He had a deep appreciation for the art of the Sung and ancient arts and ancient bronzes. And he loved creative ways of producing porcelains, really, as they say, for his amusement. And on here, you can see that they have added patination all around it. And if we go down here, I grabbed some extra images of this so we could really get into it. I just love this thing. If you blow it up, there it is. And you can see the surface, and you can see how they applied the glaze into the porcelain, into the clay, into the glaze, so that when it was fired, it would look like a green patina. All right, like you would see on a bronze. But here you can clearly see the surface here. It's a tea dust surface, but it looks like bronze. And it's sort of there was a fascination with trompe-l'oeil work with the Chinese, and this is just another example. I don't know of another example of this particular form. I haven't seen one, and I can't recall one. And they also include a very nice shot of the bottom. All right. Again, if you're interested in foot rims and what things look like, go over to the site, go over to Christie's, and get yourself a copy of this. Open it, right-click it, download it, and save it. All right. This is what the foot rim on a Qianlong tea dust glaze moonflask or a big piece should look like. The characteristics, how the mark is done, and so forth. Worth having. All right, and here's another shot of it here. It's just an elegant thing, and it's got a pretty big estimate, but not crazy. It's estimated at $750,000 to $990,000, but it's of good size. It's 17 inches tall. This is a pretty good sized vase. This is not last month we saw the tea dust glaze, the big vase that sold for about I don't know, so 300,000 or 400,000, but it wasn't a trompe-l'oeil type like this one is. It was just a beautiful color. But this is a really great example, and I'm fascinated to see how it does. Really am. And they provided lots of pictures if you really want to come over and look at it and learn about it. And there's an extensive write-up on how the form evolved, the shape, where the shape came from, and how it's a composition of a Ming shape with earlier elements to make, sort of an appreciation of archaistic bronzes. All right, great thing. And then I'm going to hop over to page 206. This is a pair of Yongzheng jars, And the story on them, there's a very nice write-up on it about the Yang family, which were sort of legendary in Chinese lore. The Yang family had female soldiers, and they were very powerful. They didn't have many men in the family, so the women learned to ride, shoot arrows, and so forth. And there's a whole lot of stories floating on around about the Yang women, and they were generals in the military. And this pair of jars is 30 inches tall. These are big jars, and they've been in a European collection since the 1950s. They're estimated at $150,000 to $220,000. They're not marked, all right, but they are absolutely stupendous. And we'll see how that goes. I think they're going to do very well. There's a good write-up here, also another one by Rosemary Scott, and there's a nice detail shot here, and it shows you the quality of the painting work on this, the way the faces were done. Pay a lot of attention to the faces. They are very handy for dating things. This is the face of how it would have been done in the Yongzheng period. Notice how the outlining of the column, the yellow columns here that she's riding her horse through, are nice and neatly outlined and then shaded in with yellow, and how every hair on the horse's tail is finely done. And then you have the horse with that sort of goofy expression on its face. Just a very good detailed shot if you really want to learn about this stuff. And we'll see how those go. They're a really wonderful pair of jars, and I don't know what the condition of them is. They may have condition issues or something, but the estimate seems pretty reasonable, given what they are. And then over here to Sotheby's Important Chinese Works of Art, and in the middle of the sale, there's right here is a dragoon vase, or they call these soldier vases. These were done in the Kangxi period, and they were pretty big. This one is 30. How big is this one? They're all big. This one is 3 feet tall, 31 inches tall, and they got their name because the king of Poland and Prussia, they explain it in here. You want to look it up. Augustus the Strong, some of you know who it is. He was the king of Poland, the elector of Saxony, and he was a huge Chinese porcelain collector. And he actually, the story is they call these soldier vases or dragoon vases, not because of their shape, but because the story is that he actually sold or traded 600 of his best soldiers in order to acquire a Chinese porcelain collection from someone. And it's a really amazing history because these were during the Kangxi period, and they were at the absolute top of the interest of foreigners. And he got himself a giant. Augustus the Strong built a massive collection of Chinese porcelain. And these are estimated, I think, fairly reasonably, 75 to 100,000. It may be a condition issue, I don't know, or they're just being very conservative. But very, very finely painted, massive jar with these dragons running around the outside and these extremely precisely done bands of other decorations all the way down the body. Just fantastic. And then over to this. This is a very fine Yuan Dynasty peony jar. It's a small one. It's only about 10 inches tall. Some of these are a bit bigger, 14, 15 inches. This is a nice one. It's beautifully decorated, and it's got a bit of a history here where it came from, according to the label. Came from a cellar in Brussels originally, and they estimated at $312,000 to $437,000. But a beautiful looking jar, and if you're interested in it, as always, get the condition report and go after it. All right. Now over to the month cups. Okay, there's a very, very pretty month cup coming up. And the estimate on it seems extremely rare given what month cups have been bringing lately. And this particular one hasn't been on the market since the 1960s. And what's really interesting in the catalog, it's estimated like 20 to 30,000 or something. It's got a fairly modest estimate, 25 to $37,000, 20 to 30,000 pounds. But what's interesting is that in here they include what it sold for at different times. And 1965 it went for 100 and a quarter, and then later in 65 it went for 225 through Blewitts. And then it was in the collection of Alan Pilkington, who was a famous collector, great collector. And then in 1969, sold again by Blewitts for 375 pounds. And the pound back then was trading at about 6 to 1 to the dollar. So that was a fair bit of money. It was, $2,400. But this is a very nice looking month cup. And in the past, a number of these, in the recent past, some of these month cups have brought a lot more than their estimates, bringing into 6 figures. And I'm not sure why this one has such a modest estimate. We'll find out. It may, as I've said on other items, sometimes when the estimates are modest, it's because there's an old repair or something on it. But this is a beautifully decorated one. The script on the back is particularly nice because it has nice soft decoration on the columns and a very strong cobalt blue seal painted onto it in the corner. And as I said, that's estimated at $25,000 to $37,000. And don't be surprised if it brings a lot more. That's all. Okay, now, but it may have something else going on with it. You never know. This is quite a thing. This is a very interesting vase. It has the Shenditang hallmark on the base, which was the name of the residence built for the Daquan Emperor around 1831. And here's the mark on the corner. There it is. And it was known as the Hall for the Cultivation of Virtue, or the Hall of Virtue was the name of the place that was built for him in his name. And they made porcelains and art objects to go in there. And this would have been made in the Daquan period after 1831 when the hall was completed. But it's beautifully painted. Really lovely, and more negative space than you typically see on these. Some nice open areas. It's not overly complicated visually to look at, but the quality of the enamels on this green is really exceptional. And the way the bats are done, the handles look to be in very nice condition. Not a lot of wear. Often the handles on these, the gilding and whatnot's all worn off. The outlining of the pine trees is beautifully done, the way they sort of do that. And then the beautiful, beautiful shading of the rocks and the beautiful shading of these flowers with that orange. It's just a great looking vase. And there's a picture of the back of it, which is over here. Here it is. And it's just a landscape with flowers and fruit-bearing trees and so forth. But the rocky outcropping on it, the layering of it is really, really fine. And this thing is estimated at about, 300 and, hold on a second, I closed the catalog. Let's go back to it. 74 page. Okay. The estimate on it is $375,000 to $625,000, which seems to be about in the range. A similar vase to this that was actually Qianlong sold not long ago, but without this hall identification, sold for about $500,000, as I recall. So we'll see how that does. But the other vase was quite similar to this. But this is a beautiful vase. I love the way it's done. And now we're going to go over to the bottom sale. Here it is. Let's start at the beginning here. Boop, there we go. This is Bonhams Fine Chinese Art. And there's just a few things in here I wanted to point out. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm not saying the catalog does a lot of good stuff. But one of the things, if you're a dealer or a collector working on a little bit of a budget, always check the Bonhams catalogs because they tend to put lots together. We're going to take a look at some of the lots they have in their next catalog after this one. There are some great potential buys in there, and I want to go over a few of them. But we have this. This is a really fine 1880s apricot or orange ground Imperial Court robe, which that was sold by Linda Rigglesworth, and she does the write-up on this over on this page here because she sold it originally, and she is, of course, one of the leading scholars in the world on Chinese silks. She knows the stuff cold, and she points out in her article that this particular color is one of the 5 imperial yellows that was used. There were several shades of yellow, and they could only be worn by the prince or the princess, as I recall. But this is an incredibly fine one, and apparently, by the description, it is in absolutely pristine condition, and there are no others known in private collections of this. There are apparently a couple in the Palace Museum collection in their archives, but in private hands, this is the only one. And she sold it years ago in the 90s and did the research and couldn't find a similar example. All right. There's one here, a somewhat similar one in the University of Alberta Museum in Canada. Okay, and this particular robe is estimated at 150 to 250,000 pounds. So for those of you in the States, that's what, I don't know, 180 or 90 to $300,000 roughly. But it's in pristine condition, which has an enormous impact on the value of textiles. All right, and then we're going to hop over here to the end of it. The end of the catalog. There's a lot of stuff in between. I don't have the time. I don't want to spend all day going through every piece. But browse the catalogs. Bonhams always gets good stuff, and their estimates tend to be pretty favorable. They don't take stuff in they don't think they can sell. The big auction, the other two big auction houses, Bonhams is a huge auction house, but the other two auction houses sometimes will take things because they really want it and they're going to take a shot at it. Bonhams tends to be a little more conservative and on what they take in and what they estimate. But on this in this catalog, there's a part of a collection of a Chinese gentleman. There's a write-up at the beginning explaining who he is. These Republican vases, and there's a few more over on this page that you can go back and browse through. There's this very nice pair of Chanchu Ping Millefiori vases. They're marked Qianlong, but they're Republic period. But they're really nice examples, and you can give you an idea of what Millefiori work should look like that was done during the Republic period. And then there are these other vases with their marks, which is interesting. Marks on Republic vases are sort of an emerging area of study, and anytime you can get samples of them that are identified, if you're a collector, I urge you to grab them and build up your own little catalog of them. All right, and now over here, this is Asian art. This is more of their generic catalog, but what's really interesting in this catalog is that they've put together at the beginning some very interesting jade lots, and the estimates are not crazy. The estimates are reasonable. The middle market of jades right now is a little bit up and down. It's a little bit soft. The extremely rare jades are doing very, very well, and the middle market is sort of all over the place. So when they get these collections in, it looks to me like Bonhams maybe just trying to lot them up and get them out. No, these are all singles, but the estimates are all in the the $3,000 to $4,000 range for some good early pieces. And then you get over here, and there are more and more of them. Okay, and here's some additional pieces. And I think if you can buy some of these, if you sell on eBay or sell on Catawiki, if you can buy some of these at the low edge or below the low estimate, you could probably resell them and make money on them. It's just my suspicion, but I think you probably could. And there are a number of lots in here that have some very, very nice jades. You have this thing here. The number 32 is this nice-looking piece of jadeite, for example, of a bamboo sleeve with branches coming over and a figure. And check the estimate on it, though. And this is 12 inches high. All right, this is a good size thing. And it is estimated at 8 to 1,200 pounds, which is about $1,000 to $1,400 for a foot-tall piece. I think that's more than reasonable. And peruse them and do a little bit of homework, but you might be able to do some judicious shopping on Bonhams. And then you get over here, they put together some significant groups of jades like these, and they date them and do all their homework on them. And I think if you're a dealer and you want to make a little bit of money, I would fish this sale and try to buy some things on the lower end and then break them into individual pieces and sell them off. I think you do pretty well. Look, there's more of them, and it goes on and on. All right, here's a whole bunch of sword hilts. All right, jade sword slides, estimated at 1,000 to 1,500 pounds, and you get a pile of them. All right, and it goes on and on. All right, and then we'll hop over here to another section of this same catalog where they've lotted some things. It's up around page 40, and it's we're going to get into snuff bottles. And they've lotted some very generous, I think, very generous lots of snuff bottles like these, okay? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 times 3, 12, a dozen of them, all right? Estimated at 8 to 1,200 pounds or $1,000 to $1,500 roughly. They're all 19th or early 20th century. They look to be in good shape. You've got a couple of iron red examples. There was an iron red example somewhat like this one not long ago, just recently here on eBay. On eBay, I think that sold for about 600, somewhere around there, 600 or 700, which is not unusual. And all of these others have got to be worth a few $100 a piece. You could probably make some money on those if you're a dealer. And there are more and more jade snuff bottles. So I would urge you, if you're a dealer looking for inventory, to get a hold of them, get condition reports on some of these lots, and go through them. And as you know, shipping, if you're in the U.S., shipping jade from shipping snuff bottles and small things, jades and so forth, from the U.K. is not expensive. You know, $50-$60 you can get them here, and I think it would be well worth doing. And then over to lot 126, we're going to take a peek into some silk lots. If you're buying and selling silks, there are some very good ones in this catalog that I think there's some money to be made in them. Here they all are, especially things like these hat fobs. They are estimated at 500 to 700 pounds, and we've all seen them sell in the past. They tend to bring $200 to $400 a piece. All right, so if you're a dealer, you might take a look at those. If you can pick them up for 400 pounds, obviously you can make some money. And they're, again, nothing to ship. And then you have these hats. We've had those hats featured on the newsletter page, and in the past, they always seem to do pretty well. Here you have 7 of them, estimated at $700 to $900. And long ago, we had one with its finial on the top that brought, I think by itself, it brought over $1,000. All right. So you want to take a look at those and follow through here. There's more and more of them, and the estimates all seem very reasonable. The estimates are very reasonable, really, really are. You have this one down here, the embroidered dragon yoke. All right. There was one of these on eBay, I think, about 5 or 6 months ago that brought around $4,000 or $5,000. They have this one estimated at $1,000 to $1,500. All right, and on and on and on. There's some good textiles in here. These are really lovely. Now here's something to keep in mind too, is that this particular type of silk, these with the peacocks, for one, they're often sold as Japanese. They are Chinese. I had an inquiry from somebody that had one of these on the ID Assistant program, and he just always assumed it was Japanese. It was Chinese, and the estimates on these are fairly strong because of the work. 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. So if you keep an eye out, these will turn up, and they have turned up on eBay and listed as Japanese, and they sell for $600 because once they're in the Japanese category on eBay, the Chinese buyers never tend to look at them. They don't go shopping in that neighborhood, as they say, for some reason. I don't know why, because a lot of stuff is misidentified. We see them all the time. And vice versa, Japanese things that are listed as Chinese. Okay. And then over here into the porcelain section of the same catalog are a whole bunch of interesting lots, all sort of with estimates well under $3,000. This really nice pair of turquoise glazed Kangxi vases, $800 to $1,200. These are very, very pretty, and they're 9 inches tall, nice glaze. And I think if you could buy it for under the low estimate, you're going to do fine with it. But there are a number of good lots in these catalogs. In this catalog in particular, for things that are, I think, buyable and resellable for a profit if you play it right. All right, but there's a lot of porcelain in here. A lot of it is Kangxi too. A lot in early 1800s. All right, so check it all out. It's worth looking. There's some great things, and let me know what you think. All right, and then we'll go back through these same items to see how they did once the sales are over in a week and a half from now or so. But I wanted to get this out before the sales happen because sometimes we get jammed up here and we don't get to them. And that's about it. There's some other stuff. They also have, if you're a Japanese collector, I didn't have time to go through it, but there's a number of very good Japanese collections, including a Netsuke collection and some very, very fine Japanese lacquers if you're a lacquer fan. The catalogs, as I said, are over here in the book section, and so check them out. There's, I think, 4 significant, 4 Japanese catalogs with some fabulous things in them. So you want to check all that out. Alrighty, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Give us a thumbs up if you like these videos. Make a comment. Come over to Bidamount and subscribe and take part. Alrighty, thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful week. Bye-bye. We'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.